Why does an abuse victim stay in the abusive relationship? It may seem really weird to somebody who's not in an abusive relationship, but the truth is that when you are in one, that it is hard to leave. First of all, here are some of the characteristics of an abuse victim. There is a loss of spontaneity. What that means is a loss of the just the freedom that we all have to just be ourselves and to react, normally, like on, just as things are happening. So there's just a complete loss of spontaneity. There's a loss of a sense of self. It's like I often think of that in The Wizard of Oz, when the Wicked Witch of the West at the very end, when she was melting and she just melts on the floor, and all of a sudden there's this person and then there's this puddle. And that's what it feels like to be an abuse victim, is that you get to the point where you completely lose yourself and you're nothing. You might also want to think of it as just, somebody who's just like limpy and can't do anything and just doesn't know who she is and what she feels and needs and wants. There's hypervigilance and walking on eggshells. So you're always looking around and you're scared and you're wondering what's going to set the abuser off, and if this particular thing that you do is going to cause a reaction, and you do everything you can to prevent that. So you try to figure out what is going on, but it's just always looking and always fearful. Confusion about the relationship. One of the things that happens is the abuser tells the abuse victim, your thoughts are wrong, your feelings are wrong, your perceptions are wrong, your opinions are wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, it didn't happen that way. And so, and the abuse is okay, and you're crazy if you think that there's something wrong, and on top of that, you make me abuse you. I wouldn't have to if you didn't do these things. And so over time, the longer the person is in the abusive relationship, the more confusion that sets in. Is the abuser right? Did I really cause him to abuse me? Did I cause him to say those things? Maybe if I had only just not done that. Next time I'll try really hard to get home earlier. I'll have dinner ready on time. I'll make sure I don't forget the receipt at the store. I'll make sure that I remember to put that receipt right over here. I'll make sure that I talk to him with more respect, or make sure my voice is really calm and that I don't say anything that has emotion that's uncomfortable for him. So it's that feeling of having to do everything that the abuser wants and feeling responsible for the abuse in the relationship, because the abuser blames the abuse victim, and in time the abuse victim says, oh, I must cause it because maybe I can figure out what not to do to make it not happen, which doesn't happen, but the attempts are still there. The need to replay events and conversations to figure out why the abuse occurred. Wow, that one is huge, because you're confused about what's going on. I am an abuse survivor, and I would go and take the incident that set off the abuse, and not physical but emotional, verbal abuse survivor, and I would write in a notebook. I have stacks of notebooks. What happened, what was said, what I said, what he said, and what I would, and then in the side, in a different color pen, like in a red pen, I would write, this is reality, as I was trying to figure it all out. And I would be very confused. And for a long time, I would have to actually call somebody that I trusted and say, this is what happened, this is what was said. Does that feel normal to you? Does that feel right? Was I out of line in how I responded or what I said? Was that okay? Because there's so much confusion. And I had a woman one time, it was actually in a 12-step program when I first started going, who said to me, if he told you that your hair was black, you'd run to the mirror to check the color of your hair. I've always been blonde. And she was absolutely right, because that is how bad you get when you're in that relationship. And what you do is you replay the event and you replay the conversation over and over and over again to figure out if you're crazy or not, and if it happened that way or not, or if the abuser's right. It's just really difficult. The next one is feeling off balance and unsteady, especially after an abusive incident occurs. I remember feeling just like I'd get to the point where I'd relax because abuse is inconsistent. It'll happen, and then maybe for a while it doesn't happen. And then something will happen, and the abuse victim thinks, what did I do to bring it on? Nothing. The abuser is the one who's got all that stuff going on inside of him, or if it's a woman, her, and it originates from all that stuff inside the abuser, but the victim doesn't know that. The victim thinks, okay, I did this, so now I'm feeling great, everything's good, maybe the abuse has gone away, maybe it's not going to happen anymore. And then all of a sudden an incident happens, and it's like, oh my gosh, like my whole world was just rocked. So now I feel really unsteady, like, the rug pulled out from under your feet, and I'm sitting here on the floor, and I didn't see that coming. What happened? Next one is an inability to function in daily activities. That's when it gets really bad, when you're really affected by the abuse and you just can't put your life together, and it's too much. Getting to work, keeping the house clean, doing what you need to do to take your responsibilities, whether it's the kids, it's just overwhelming. Next one is a feeling of depression and hopelessness. I mean, you do get to the point where you feel hopeless because you feel stuck and you feel you can't leave, and yet at the same time, you don't know what to do. The next one is low self-esteem. I mean, how can you feel good about yourself when you're being abused? Because the message is you're worthless, you don't deserve good treatment, and after a while, you believe it. And then on top of that, there might be a part of the victim that knows, I shouldn't be tolerating this, and what's wrong with me that I am. So that lowers the self-esteem even more. And then the next one is shame. And men especially feel this because men aren't supposed to be abused by women. They're supposed to be the ones that have power in the relationship. So for a man to admit he's being abused is really, there's a little stigma there. But it's shameful for anybody to admit what's going on behind closed doors when you're the victim of any type of abuse, emotional, physical, verbal, sexual. It's just really, really embarrassing to admit that this is going on in your life. The next one is anxiety, worry, fear. I mean, you're fearful about tomorrow, fearful about the relationship, fearful about the kids, fearful about being, taken care of and what's going to happen in the future. Invalidation of your own thoughts, feelings, opinions, and perceptions. Now, at first, it's the abuser that's telling you that your perceptions and thoughts and feelings, opinions, experiences are wrong, that his are right and yours are wrong. Then after a while, you get to the point where you literally invalidate your own and you say, I'm wrong. I don't perceive things right. My beliefs are stupid. My feelings aren't right. My reactions aren't right. And you begin to invalidate yourself. And then you have a loss of confidence in all areas. You don't feel good about yourself. Your self-esteem's down here. And then how do you have the confidence to go get a job, to go back to school, to reach out and connect with people and tell them what's going on so that you get support? And then there's dreaming about leaving the relationship, but you can't follow through. So you'll idealize or imagine what it would be like if you could get out, but you just can't. You don't have the ability to pull yourself together and do that. And then there's a feeling of being trapped. How do I get out? I can't go. Maybe it's the kids. You've got kids and you are being threatened that if you leave, the kids are staying and you can't take the kids with you and the abuser will get full custody, or you won't have any money, or I'll ruin you, or I'll throw you out on the street, or I'll tell everybody in your life this about you. And it could be a lie, but it's a threat that makes you feel like I can't do this. So leaving an abusive relationship is really, really difficult. So this is what happens to the abuse victim when they're in the relationship long enough. So why do they actually stay? Well, sometimes they feel like, I don't want to leave the relationship. I love this person. I care about this person. Maybe it's a dependent relationship where it's marriage. Maybe there's a stigma associated with divorce. It could be in a church or in a family system where divorce is not accepted or approved. It could be a cultural belief that divorce isn't okay. It could be they're afraid to be on their own. A lot of times victims have so little self-esteem and money and ability to get a job that they're just completely scared to be alone. They want their kids to have a mother and father together, so they don't want the family to be broken up. Or they could fear the financial loss and instability that happens when you split assets and there's not, this may be the same income, maybe the income's low. They don't want to be alone. They believe that no one else will love them, and often an abuser will say, nobody else will love you. You're not worth anything. Nobody will do that. There's a big fear of leaving the children with the abuser unsupervised. So if you know that you're with somebody who's abusive, and if you've either seen that person be abusive to the kids or you fear that there might be abuse, and how can you separate and divorce knowing that custody would be split of children? The judgment that others will give them for, like I said, divorce or leaving or separating or maybe a relationship not working. Maybe they believe they deserve the abuse, that they aren't worth being treated good. Might believe that, maybe all men are abusive, and no matter where they go, their experience is going to be, I'll just find somebody else who's abusive, so why bother to leave? It could be that they excuse the abuse. They say minimize it. It's not that bad. At least I'm not hit. At least I have a roof over my head. At least I have money. At least somebody is there and I'm not alone. And so all of those are reasons that the abuse victim finds it very hard to leave an abusive relationship. I'm going to do a separate video, a YouTube video that talks about how an abuse victim can get to the point where she's able or he's able to leave a relationship. So thank you for watching this video on Change My Relationship.